You will find copies of the staff report for each case before us this evening. I recommend that if you have not yet seen that report for your case, or if you want to check out any of the other cases, please come forward and get a copy and review them before the case is called. The board's powers are prescribed in the Virginia Code and are set out in further detail in the county's zoning ordinance adopted by the county board. You might have saw me a moment ago. Normally we have copies of those underneath the desk here, but they've apparently moved them. We still have a copy with us if we have any questions. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the power to rezone property or amend the regulations set forth in the ordinance. That authority rests with the county board. The board does have the authority to do three things. We can approve use permits that allow modifications of placement requirements for structures on 1- and 2-family lots where there is no option in the zoning ordinance to allow such modifications. We can grant variances from the specific requirements of the zoning ordinance, and we can decide appeals of the decisions of the zoning administrator. When approving use permits, the Board of Zoning Appeals may impose conditions that it deems necessary in the public interest. As you will note in each of the reports for your cases, even if there's a recommendation to adopt and approve the request, those additional limitations are placed in the recommendation. In order to approve a use permit, the law requires that the board find that the proposal meet conditions and that the use permit will not, first, adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood, second, will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood, and third, will not be in conflict with the purposes of the master plans and land use and zoning related policies of the county. To make these assessments, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall consider whether the modifications will promote compatibility of development with the surrounding neighborhood because the structure's overall footprint size and placement are similar to the structures on the property surrounding the lot in question. This comes into being most often when we're dealing with homes that were built prior to changes in the zoning ordinances, because much of the neighborhood would have then the same character of the homes and properties we're looking at. Secondly, we have to determine whether the modification will help preserve the natural landform, historical features, and/or significant trees and foliage. As you will note in some of the conditions, there is a requirement to replace trees or foliage if it has been compromised by the activity. When granting variances, the board must determine that the strict application of the ordinance would produce undue hardship, that the hardship is not generally shared by other properties in the same zoning district, and that the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property, and that the character of the district will not be changed by the granting of the variance. A Virginia Supreme Court ruling requires that the variance cannot be granted unless the effect of the zoning ordinance, as applied to the piece of property under consideration, would, in the absence of the variance, interfere with all reasonable beneficial uses of the property taken as a whole. This evening, the cases will be called and a brief staff report and a recommendation will be given. Following that, board members will ask any questions of staff that they may have. Next, we'd invite the applicants or their representative to come forward, and they'll be given an opportunity to make comments to support the application. If they choose to make a comment, they must come forward to the podium so that their comments can be recorded for the record. Next, all speakers for the item will be called. Speakers must fill out a speaker slip, which is available on the table in the front of the room. Where are speaker slips?
On the podium.
It's actually, they're on the podium. I was thinking usually they're on the table over here, so make clear. On the podium. So if you're not the applicant, if you're somebody else who wants to speak on a case, we need you to fill out a speaker slip. If you're the applicant, we already have your name for the record, and you don't need to fill out a speaker slip. After we hear from the speakers for and against the proposal, the board may permit the applicant a brief opportunity to clarify any points. The board may ask questions of speakers but does not permit and will not condone any cross-examination or direct questioning by others. We have deemed the following time limits for speakers to be sufficient: 5 minutes for applicants for use permits and variances. For use permits and variances, we have deemed 3 minutes for representatives of organizations and 2 minutes for individuals as being sufficient. After the board has gathered all the information they need and discussed the case, it will decide the matter by voting on a motion duly made and seconded. A majority is needed to approve any motion. Any appeal from the decision of this board must be made to the circuit court in accordance with state law. After your case of interest is heard, you are welcome to stay for the balance of the session, or you can leave at your convenience. Again, we thank you for being here this evening. And Mr. Noxon, I'd ask you to call the first case.
Thank you and good evening. Our first case tonight is case number V-10914-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Ona Haas and Daniel Tenney to permit a setback of 4.1 feet from the right side property line instead of 8 feet as required. Also an aggregate side yard of 11.8 feet instead of 18 feet as required. It's for the construction of a new right side egress window well. This is in the R5 zoning district on a premises known as 732 North Cleveland Street.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Does the board have any questions of staff? Seeing none, are Ona Haas or Daniel Tenney present? Why don't you come forward? You can share with us anything you'd like to about your request.
Thank you very much for your time. I think unless you all have any questions, we are happy to just leave it in your hands, but we're also happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Does the board have any questions? Seemed pretty straightforward. You have one of those long, narrow lots, which causes some problems in terms of
Madam Chair,
setbacks.
and owing to that problem, I would move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10914-14-UP1, subject to the conditions which are listed in the resolution.
Second.
I'll take Mr. Russell's second on that one. It's been moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Russell. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our next case is V-10915-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Richard and Kimberly Ellis to permit a setback of 9 feet from the rear property line instead of 25 feet as required. This is for a new rear deck with steps. This is in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 5829 21st Street North.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit for a setback of 10 feet from the rear property line with conditions. The zoning administrator's office has also provided an alternative resolution should the BZA wish to grant a 9-foot rear setback as requested by the applicants. Any questions of staff?
I have a question. Is this fence on the property line, the rear line?
Let me check the plat here. I believe it is.
You can ask the applicant.
It looks like it's directly on the property line.
Is there a county easement behind it?
Sorry?
Is it a utility easement, or what's the space behind it?
There is, yes, there's a sanitary sewer easement behind there as well.
Thank you.
Any additional questions of staff? If not, are Richard and/or Kimberly Ellis present? Or their representative? This is Ms. Ellis.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for the board's consideration, and happy to answer any questions. Would also be pleased to comply with either staff recommendation in terms of the setback.
So you're okay with the 9-foot instead of the 10-foot?
Yes.
Yeah. And just for the record, and I think the
It's a reverse.
10 versus 9.
10 versus 9, so I'm sorry, yes. The 10-foot, so that you're closer, you're further away from the setback line. And the reason that recommendation is being made is as is stated in the proposal, is that would bring it in conformance with the rest of the setbacks that are done in the neighborhood. One being having a smaller setback, but that being a unique circumstance where I think the property itself was built further back to begin with.
Correct.
Any other questions? Not? Yeah.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit 10915-14-UP1 for a rear yard setback of 10 feet, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Your permit is granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next case is V-10916-14-UP-1, and this is a use permit request by Stacy Kavanaugh to permit a setback of 5.9 feet from the right side property line instead of 8 feet as required, and 18.8 feet from the 8th Street South right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. This is for a new front porch with steps and the replacement of the roof above an existing entry vestibule. It's in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 4033 8th Street South, and this is actually a request to defer.
Yes, the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution to defer the subject use permit to the July 16th Board of Zoning Appeals hearing.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals defer the subject use permit to the July 16 meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Ms. Freshman. All in favor? Aye. Hearing that all four voted yes, the motion carries. And the matter is deferred.
The next case is V-10917-14-VA-3. This is a variance request by Howard and Martha Thorkelson to permit a total lot coverage of 35.2% instead of 32% as permitted. This is for the replacement of the roof above an existing right side mudroom and an existing right side porch with steps. This is in the R10 zoning district on a premises known as 3051 North Upland Street.
Any questions of staff? Wait, the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the variance. Now, are there any questions of staff? Mr. Knoxon, it is correct that this is simply to replace an existing structure, is that correct?
Exactly, and that's only the roof above it.
Yes, okay. No further questions. Are Howard and/or Martha Thorkelson? I think I got it. Present?
We are, and I have nothing more to add to Mr. Knoxon's report, and then I'll answer any questions that any of you might have.
Do you get mistaken for Arnold Palmer?
A lot of people, I wish I had his money, I'll tell you that. A lot of people ask me that. I'm glad I don't have his golf swing, though.
As I look at the picture on the side here versus the elevation photograph in the drawing, will your new roof line cover the window that looks like it's over on that side, or?
On the end of the gable. Mm-hmm. Well, it will to some extent. I think it's going to extend about 6 inches from the side of that end wall.
Well, I think it's going to look very nice in terms of mimicking what's already existing on that side of the house, and probably will help you a lot with weather. Usually those flat roofs don't work as well as a slanted.
Yeah, I know. I'm not a great lover of flat roofs.
Okay. If there are no further questions,
Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving variance V-10917-14-VA-3, subject to the following conditions which are listed in the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Russell. All in favor? Aye. That carries unanimous. Your permit is granted.
The next case is the associated use permit. This is V-10917-14-UP-1, and this is a use permit request by Howard and Martha Thorkelson to permit a setback of 4.3 feet to the eave and 5.3 feet to the porch base and steps from the right side property line instead of 16 feet as required. Also an aggregate side yard of 8.8 feet instead of 24 feet as required. This is for the replacement of the roof above an existing right side mudroom and an existing right side porch with steps. It's in the R10 zoning district, premises known as 3851 North Upland Street.
Actually, this is the one that addresses the ability to build the structure. The previous case was because of the lot coverage issue that existed as a pre-existing condition in terms of the size of the house. Any questions regarding this matter? I think then we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith.
I'd move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving use permit V-10917-UP-14-UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Thank you.
Second.
I'm going to take Mr. Russell since he did the last one on that one again. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That carried unanimously. Now you have both the parts that you need to be able to reconstruct your roof. Good luck.
Okay, the next case is V-10918-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by John and Lori Marr to permit a setback of 8.3 feet to the left side property line instead of 11 feet as required. Also an aggregate side yard of 21.3 feet instead of 24 feet as required. This is for a new one-story left side garage addition. This is in the R10 zoning district on a premises known as 3206 North Piedmont Street.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Any questions of staff? Okay, no further no questions of the staff. Are John and/or Lori Maurer present? Marr, excuse me.
Hello.
Do you have anything you want to share with us this evening?
I don't think we have anything to add. Maybe a question. Did we get a record for the number of signatures from neighbors?
I was going to comment on that. I think you do have the record that at least on my time sitting on the zoning board, 31 signatures in favor is truly the most that I've seen. So I was very impressed with that.
Neighborhood.
Good neighborhood. I was going to say it must be a very close-knit neighborhood in that you probably had a street party and said, everybody sign this.
We're happy to answer.
Or you left-handed them.
No.
It was, let's see, I think I had a,
What's missing?
my, I just had it. I'm like losing my mind. Probably put it here. If there are no questions, I think they're happy with the staff report. Ms. Freshman?
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10918-14-UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Russell seconds. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Hey, Cliff. Hey, Cliff. Oh, jeez.
What happened?
Guess we have a malfunction of some sort with the overhead projector.
Oh, the one above went out. Ours are
Jeez.
still on.
Well,
It's probably the
I
bulb.
was going to say, it's blinking.
it's just frozen. Jeez. Do we have a, maybe we can turn that smaller screen around so people can come up and look at it? If we really need to. All right, our next case is V-10919-14-UP-1, and this is a use permit request by Mascara Mulatu to to permit an aggregate side yard of 14.9 feet instead of 18 feet is required in order to permit the expansion of a two-story addition approved by a previous variance. This is in the R6 zoning district. This is the premises known as 4705 22nd Street North.
Okay. And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Now, any questions of staff? Yay. Very good, Mr. Hogan. Thank you. Or it might be the electrical issues with the tornado. Okay. I did have one question, Mr. Knox, and it looks like this is what I found interesting about this is we always write into the conditions that they can't build over or enclose the structures. So why is this one that the staff feels comfortable? Is that this one?
Let me see.
Or is that not? No, that's the next one.
The applicant agrees that the addition shall not be built over.
Is that this one?
Condition number 3. Do you have the right report?
Maybe I'm not.
Should have 919.
Yeah. But the prior variance, was that, what was that for? Is that this one?
The previous variance was actually for the addition you see right here, this photo,
Oh, okay.
the two-story addition. So the condition from the previous variance stated that you cannot expand the addition. So we consider this an expansion of the addition because they're filling in that gap and adding on to it.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get clarified. So it's not, this is not the circumstance where they're building over a porch or a structure that we've granted.
Exactly.
This is
They're actually adding to it.
modifying the previous addition. Okay. Wasn't completely sure. And this picture is excellent to give us that idea about the gap. So thank you. Any other questions of staff? Right. No other questions of staff at this time. Is Ms. Garam Malatu? Okay. Can you fill out just a speaker slip for us, and then you can come forward and just
applicant on.
You're the applicant as well? The applicant is usually the owner's name, not the...
She's filled out the section for agent.
She's a project manager.
Okay, so do we need a speaker slip then, Mr. Noxon, or are we, yeah, we do.
Usually would require that, yes, if she's not the owner.
Metro Kitchen and Bath.com.
Okay. So do we have any questions of the representative of the builder?
Madam Chair, I do, and it goes to the, one of the efforts that we ask of applicants is that they talk to their neighbors about what they're proposing, and this report indicates that there isn't any written acknowledgement from neighbors that they support the project. Do you know to what extent the applicant has tried to make contact?
Well, Ms. Bulatu has made efforts to contact the neighbors, but she works for the IMF and she's out of country a lot. And I know that she was trying to be here this evening, but well, let's say there's been a lot of changes in her life. She has just recently successfully adopted 2 infants. And I think it could be the reason why she was not able to make it here this evening with the letters.
So you think that she did in fact contact neighbors?
She she said she was going to make an attempt when she was in town to do it, but she just recently came back with the 2 infants, I think 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that was the one issue that concerned me as well. Because we don't know whether, one of the things that we always like to look at is whether the neighbors would be concerned about an addition, especially if this is an addition to something that already is done pursuant to a variance. Is there anything further that you'd like to tell us about what the addition will do or why this is necessary? How much will be gained from this?
Well, the addition, was requested by Ms. Mulatu to have constructed because she knew she was bringing one family member home, but surprisingly, she actually will have 2 new family members. And when she built that addition back then, it was financial constraints, which, was the reason why she did not really square off the house. And now she's able to, and that's why she is requesting to have the house expanded to accommodate also the 2 new members to the family.
So was she the owner of the property when the prior extension was granted back in 2003?
Yes.
This is 1-9, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bottom in the back.
Cherry cast it. Well, I remember those days.
Mr. Smith, would you happen to have any recollection?
I'm just wondering if this is that meeting that went till about 2 in the morning. We were downstairs in the conference room, and there were several things on the agenda. There was a Our Lady Queen of Peace issue. I'm noting that I was the chairman of the board in 2003, and looking at the lineup and recalling where that was, we had very few meetings downstairs.
Do you think I remember 2003?
And it was hot, I remember.
I'm pretty impressed.
July, so that may have been interesting. The only, Madam Chair, my only concern would be, it's not the addition, because it's not a real great encroachment, it's the neighbor that's adjacent, because it's not terribly, it's a large addition. Mm-hmm. It's 2 stories, and that's the only concern I have. I would feel more comfortable knowing that there had been some contact with that neighbor to give them an idea of what was planned. And I know that Environmental Services puts up signs in the neighborhood. I know that, and they send out notices. But sometimes you get a renter who is living there and doesn't pass the information on to the owner, and all kinds of things happen. But I'm not objecting on the merit of the design or the amount of encroachment. More that will it be detrimental to the neighbors? That's the only concern that I have.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Smith, Mr. Russell.
do we have speakers on this item?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Well, wait. No, yeah, just the one who I had signed the speaker slip.
Thank you. Then maybe it might be a good idea for us to defer this for a month with the directive to the agent that they seek. Certainly, the neighbor on the side where the addition is to be placed, and other neighbors behind around the neighborhood, so that we can have some comfort that people know what's going on, whether they support, and then they can tell us whether they support it or not. I mean, I will also note that the lot is substandard, the width is substandard. It's only for the aggregate. It's not for, it's no more of an encroachment than the house already encroaches
Right.
on that side yard. But, and would, because it also meets the side yard requirement on that side. But I think a deferral might be an idea.
And I guess I also would add to that a concern, not even so much that we don't have the letters, but in light of the fact that the former notice that was attached when the first addition was allowed indicated it would not be expanded or enlarged. That's another reason I think that we need the letters of support, because previously when the board acted, we had let the community know that there wouldn't be an expansion. That was the determination of the board at the time. And so I do think in the absence of getting that additional feedback from the community, it's kind of us going back on what we had promised them. So we really do need that additional information. So what you're hearing is that we're recommending a deferral. Would that be acceptable? Yes. Okay. Mr. Russell?
Madam Chairman, I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals defer case V1091914 UP1 to the June 2014 meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
July
That would be July 16th.
I said June, July. I apologize.
16. Second.
I think Mr. Smith had seconded already. Ms. Freshman, that was a very good catch, though. Thank you very much. So it's been moved and seconded that the matter be deferred. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So the matter will be deferred till July, so please have her either come with the letters, or at least if you can come on her behalf and bring the letters indicating the neighborhood support, that would be very helpful.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, our next case is V-10920-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Tree Lee to permit a setback of 7.2 feet to the right side property line instead of 8 feet as required, 18 feet to the steps, 21.2 feet to the cantilevered bays, and 17.6 feet to the areaway from the North Roosevelt Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. Also 14.5 feet to the eave of the home, 15.4 feet to the wall of the home, 17.2 feet to the steps, 19.7 feet to the porch base, and 17.6 feet to the areaway from the 11th Street North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. This is for a new 2.5-story single-family home with a front stairway, 2 projecting bays, a left side porch with steps, and a basement areaway. It's on the is in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 1100 North Roosevelt Street.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Any questions of staff? Okay. If seeing none, is Tree Lee present? Would you come forward?
I have more signature from the neighbor.
Oh, that's wonderful. If you could give them to Mr. Hogan, he'll, or even Mr. Russell, either way, and we'll pass them down.
I didn't know until yesterday that I need the more signature, the better. Yeah, so I found out from Mr. Nixon yesterday. So I went today, and that's how much I get.
Well, thank you for getting them. As you heard earlier, we had somebody who had 31 today, so that was the record. You didn't probably make that, but we appreciate. But you also didn't have 0. So as long as you have as long as you don't have 0, you're in good shape. As you saw, when there was 0, then it's difficult for us to act. So we appreciate that you got more.
I got like about 10 in a day.
Great.
No picnic, no party.
Okay, well, you want to take this property and turn it into something very different,
Yes.
but it's a corner lot, and corner lots always pose a little bit of problems because of the setbacks.
Yes.
And it's also a substandard lot, is that correct?
Correct.
Is there anything else you'd want to tell us about your project than what's in the paper?
No, I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Lee? Okay, if there are no questions, I think he can sit for a moment. I believe I do have a speaker on this matter,
Okay.
Barry Bischoff. Okay, so why don't we let Mr. Bischoff come and speak and say what he wants to say, and then you'll get a chance to speak again, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Lee.
My name is Barry Bischoff. I live at 1201 Roosevelt Street, the house directly across the street on the corner of 12th and Roosevelt. As you may be aware, this is a very busy street. This is the street that goes from East Falls Church Metro to Wilson Boulevard, and also is the eastbound exit onto 66. People coming up the hill and down the hill already think they're going on to 66, and as a result, I think if you look at the statistics, you'll find out this is one of the most dangerous residential areas for accidents in Arlington County. In July of 2003, a car came down the hill, hit the pole in front of my house, put the pole through my front porch. 2 years later, to the day, can I present pictures?
Mm-hmm.
The car went 55
Actually, don't speak until you're in front of the,
car went 55 feet through my lot, T-boned my car, and demolished it in my driveway. The center point where the car hit my vehicle at the rearview mirror, if you see these pictures, was approximately 29 feet from the street. Believe it or not, a year later to the day, another car went through a fence, hit the house next door to that house. Well, actually hit the house 2 houses away, and then almost hit the house next door, but it was stopped by a tree. And in December, there was another accident that involved 5 cars in front of that house, the house next door, and also demolished a motorcycle in the driveway of the house next door.
next door, are you saying to the right of the house, the one with the gray roof that
Yeah,
we're
to
seeing?
the house that's 1100, to the house next door to that, like 1103. 6 cars on the street, and right there, in that driveway, it actually demolished. So I have pictures of all of these various accidents and things like that. I have nothing opposed to the house being redone. I think that would be a good idea. But this is a really dangerous street, and as you see, it is a lot of area in the back to expand into. To build toward this street just seems to be problematic. I mean, I would hate to hear that somebody is killed in their bed or killed doing their dishes by a car coming up the street. And as I said, there was an accident there 2 weeks ago in front of the house caddy corner. Those houses stayed on that street for almost 3 weeks before they cleaned them up. So I just want to point out it is a really busy street. It'll get busier when the new metro line opens at East Falls Church. And I guess my point is that since there seems to be a lot of area to expand in the back, that would seem to be the wiser move than getting closer to the street where, as I said, this was about 29 feet where my car was impacted. My house, you can see there is the brown roof across the street with the white car in the driveway. Mm-hmm. My car was parked slightly further up when it was hit, but it went all the way from that corner through my entire front yard and hit the car where you see that white car. My convertible is parked a little forward. So I just want to point that out. Can I present the picture?
Yeah. And your street, Mr. Bishev, the one that your house is on, that's on that angle?
Yes, if you go right across the street to see another, that's 12th Street coming down there. My house is has the brown roof on the corner. There's a white car in the driveway. Mm-hmm. That's my house.
But the street next to it is 12th Street.
12th Street, and the street next to his is 11th Street. So it's sort of.
I say the angle on that in this intersection looks like it's also problematic.
Yeah, I mean, actually, when the cars come up, they shine their lights right into that house. But
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a problem seeing. And the other thing, too, you don't see from this picture is if you look probably at the fourth house, it goes downhill quite a bit. And the reason that side is even more dangerous than my side is people come roaring up. It curves from the metro past the soccer fields and then goes uphill and gets uphill right about 4 or 5 houses down from that corner. So I think a lot of these accidents are caused by people even maybe just backing into a parking space or just coming up the hill very fast. So, as I said, if you look at the distance the car traveled from that corner to hit the car in my driveway and then push it actually up into the grassy area, it was quite a feat that he missed all my trees. So it's just a very busy, very dangerous intersection. And, I guess that's just my point.
I can attest to that curve up the block. I went around the block when I came out to do the site photos, and it took me about 20 minutes to pull out there because you can't see anybody coming around that next curve.
And Mr. Noxon, with the placement of the house, the proposed placement of the house, will that be aggravated in any way?
Sorry?
Will the proposed placement of the house aggravate that, the site or the ability to
I
pull
wouldn't
out
think
in
so
and out?
because it's in the same location where the existing house is, and also the front of the home is actually meeting the 25-foot front yard setback from the street. It's these smaller things that are encroaching into it, such as the window wells, the 2 projecting bays, the steps, and the little portico. And if you were to push it back further, you would just push the rear of the house closer to 11th Street, which could probably be done, but we would have to re-advertise.
Thank you. It's important. This is why we love the notices to the community. It gives us some idea of what we're dealing with.
No objection, the house being redone. I'm all in favor of that. I'm just to move it forward toward the street seems to be.
Yeah, and I think what's important to know is it's not going to be moved forward. It's going to stay in that same location. So I hope that makes you feel more comfortable, and that's what I just wanted to make sure with Mr. Noxon.
Yeah. It's really 11th Street where you're getting a lot closer.
And that might actually end up helping a little bit if there's a bigger structure. People might, not, if sometimes that open space causes even more carelessness of people. I don't know. Mr.
The one problem is also there's a hill to the left of it, and people are coming down the hill already thinking they're getting on 66. So there's issues going both ways.
I know that intersection. It always makes me nervous.
Makes me look at the speedometer.
Mr. Lee, did you have anything else you want to say? Yes. Okay, can you come to the microphone and respond to the concerns?
Yes, sir. I understand your concern, but we're not building anything closer to the 11th Street, to Roosevelt Street. We're building to the back of the property. That's where I'm building. We're not building any more closer to Roosevelt. That's where a lot of traffic. And we also make the front door, the garage door on 11 instead of Roosevelt.
Yeah, sort of to alleviate some of those concerns, exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Any other questions? I think, hearing none, you can have a seat, and I think we're ready for action. Ms. Freshman?
Move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10920-14-UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Smith. All in favor? Aye. Unanimously carries 4-0. Thank you very much for attending.
Our next case is V-10737-12-UP-2. And this is a returning customer. This is a use permit request by Brett Bibelheimer to permit a setback of 4.2 feet to the eave and 5.4 feet to the wall of a new 2-story addition from the right side property line instead of 10 feet as required. A setback of 16 feet from the 17th Street North right-of-way instead of 25 feet is required, and also an aggregate side yard of 11.6 feet instead of 18 feet is required. It's for a new two-story addition with a basement-level garage and a new front stairway. This is in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 3187 17th Street North.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Any questions of staff? Mr. Noxon, do we happen to have any pictures of any of the other properties that are described in the report that have the underground garage?
You might be able to see the one in the aerial photo, and not really. The one directly to the left.
Oh, the one covered by trees is one of them?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
That looks like, though, it has a little bit further setback than what we'll have here, or no?
Let me see.
It's on a curve, so it's hard to tell.
That's 3191, and
I think because of the curve, it's deceptive, even if it, but it does, in the picture, it just appears to be, 3187 appears closer.
3191, I believe, was a 5-foot setback.
Wow. I appreciate the aerial photos, so it does give me comfort to know that what the neighborhood looks like.
And you can kind of see the 1-2 houses to the right as well. It has that same sort of situation. There's a garage down below, then there's an addition above it. And that one, that's not there. Is that the BCN home? Okay, okay. So that, never mind, that one's demolished. Fortunately, our aerial photos are still about 2 years behind.
Are they from Google Earth, or are they?
Neither. They're, I think they're through, I couldn't even tell you the company. It's somebody we have a contract through with the county.
I wondered about that, because there are times when our pictures are so far from what the status is.
Even Google Earth is usually about 1.5 years behind to a year behind, so.
Any questions of staff? If not, is Brett Biebelheimer here? Okay.
Chairwoman, I'm the owner of 3187 17th Street North. If you have any questions this time, I'm prepared to attempt to answer them.
Looks like a pretty ambitious project, but I think at the end it's going to be, it'll provide some additional, definitely a good way to get additional space in a unconventional lot.
Absolutely.
I guess the one question I would have is, this is another packet we have that doesn't have letters from the neighbors. Can you tell us what you've done in reaching out to them, please?
Actually, one of my neighbors is here right now, the affected neighbor. I've spoken to other neighbors, and they're in agreement with this. I didn't have a chance to get the signatures. I've actually been away on some training with the military, but I'm sure my neighbor Nancy has something to add to this.
If you could have her fill out a speaker slip for us real quick. Okay. Oh, that's the one that we have? Nope.
737.
Wait, I do have it. Nancy, is it? Alaconis. And, okay. Well, why don't we have her speak then? Because I think we don't have any direct questions for you, Whitney. Exactly. Plus, it sounds like you have history of the neighborhood, too, which will be very helpful.
Yes, I've been there for 28 years.
Wonderful.
Well, it's getting less wonderful with all the new construction. I didn't come here to make an enemy of my neighbor. I'm sure we can work something out that's amicable. I did not come to the previous variance hearing because the variance requested was small, and at that time, I had not lived through having construction next door. Now I have lived through having construction next door for the BCN construction. In the variance that was previously approved, there's a reference to the most negative impact will be on the neighbor to the east. That would be me. It also refers to mitigated by dense shrubs. There were no dense shrubs then, there are no dense shrubs now. As he said, although I have been generally aware that he's wants to do a renovation and add on, I did not see specific plans prior to personally going to the zoning office this afternoon and picking them up. And it's my impression that there has been minimal communication with the neighbors. I believe a notice would have gone to neighbors across the street, except they've been on international travel since April 30th and will not return until June 30th. I have no idea whether they would be for or against this. I kind of doubt that they'd care because they're across the street. And it is not my intent to lobby them to go one way or the other, but that would be one reason that I would suggest perhaps it should be deferred for another month. My main concern with the construction is not the specific setback from the lot line, but that the space is so tight already and it's going to be even tighter, and are they going to be able to do the construction without affecting things on my side of the property line, especially a couple of retaining walls. I note that when BCN constructed next door, even though they did not request a variance because they stayed within the zoning regulations, they dug to the very edge of the lot line to do that. And I just can't imagine how he's going to fit this in without perhaps even going beyond the lot line. And as a very minor point, I note in the application, which was obviously copied from someone else's application because there's a paragraph on page 2 that refers to a house built in 1910 with a setback from Edgewood Street instead of a house built in 1937 with a setback from 17th Street. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Which, before you sit, could you tell me which house is yours again then on this?
It's the one to the right, and I myself put on the, our two houses were originally identical and were built at the same time in 1937. I built on the addition to the back, which was a kitchen on the lower level and a master bedroom on the upper level without needing variance, so I didn't have to come before you. And I did that in 1997.
Okay, so, and currently the house that we're looking at is in the original structure of what was built?
Yes.
So it has no addition. So that's why there's a difference between yours and the other, but they originally were the same?
Yes.
And the house next door to that, was that the same too? Were all those homes the same?
I'm at the house to the left of the one with the X?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a totally different
Style?
design. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I think that information is very helpful. If you have a seat, we'll talk to the applicant. Why don't you come forward? I think the neighbor has made a good point that I think, I think in the absence of having other neighbors who've indicated that they support the project, I have a little bit of concern of moving forward today. And maybe even getting information from the neighbor on the other side. Although we've heard from the neighbor on the one side, we haven't heard from the neighbor on the other side. I'm not sure, it looks like there's a little more space between that neighbor and your house, but it's hard to say.
Ma'am, is that the one to the left of my house?
Yeah.
It's actually fairly, I won't say fairly tight, but there was, when they asked for this is prior to me owning the home, I bought the home about 2.5 years ago. The home to the left of mine, when they built that garage and they dropped the garage 1 story to street level, they had to cut a little wedge off the back of their above ground addition because it didn't meet the distance, the setback. And their house is actually, it's on the same distance from the land, but because their property is wider but shorter, it seems like it's farther away from the street.
As I said, that's what I was thinking when I looked at the other pictures, because I said as the curve goes, you can't really tell what the setbacks are, because I think the curve also gives you a false sense of how far they're actually set back.
That's correct.
I kind of hate to ask you to come back next month, but my experience with my colleagues is in the absence of having support from the neighbors or additional information, that we might not be inclined to grant the request. You also gave a speaker slip from your builder. I don't know if they can give any additional light. We'll take that testimony now.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to comment a couple things. One...
Before we start, for the
sorry,
record,
Phil
you're
Bentley.
Phil Bentley at 11 T Street Northeast in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
As far as the construction goes, you know, the majority of what we're building is by rights. It is the garage and what's above the garage that we're asking for the use permit. So the vast majority of the volume that we're building is on this because we want to connect the foundation walls for ease of construction. Originally, we had gotten approval for a very similar scope on this without the rear addition, and that was done on recommendation of the staff that we apply separately for what was by right and what was requiring a use permit. So we decided to combine these together because for two reasons. One is we had a below grade garage before. Now we want to make it a slightly above grade so we have passive drainage. And also because connecting the foundations just simplifies the construction process, but it doesn't happen within the setback required. As far as construction goes, doing the garage portion of this will allow us to do the rear addition with less impact on the neighbors because we can go through the excavation for the garage portion to get to the rear. Whereas instead of going around or trying to avoid going near the property line, we can actually just go through where the garage is currently. I don't see how the neighbors...
So can you explain the building again? Just clarify for me the building process that you envision if the permit is...
So like roughly what I envision is the first thing we would do is actually remove the existing garage.
So giving you space to get access to the...
Begin the construction in the front yard with the retaining walls along the driveway so we can start ramping down rather... Because currently when you stand at the bottom of the driveway, it's 7 feet 6 inches to the floor of the existing garage, where we want to make that about 6 inches above the end of the driveway so we have passive draining. But...
And Mr. Hogan, can you give us the front porch again?
Yeah, so there you go. So we basically, what we would do is we would actually excavate down first in the front at the driveway going toward the back of the house. And that garage area, we'd basically bring it down to where we're going to ultimately have the foundation, which would be about, from the street, will be about 30 inches below grade. And then we would use that pathway to get to the excavation in the rear versus driving around the garage addition. My other feeling on this is...
Your vehicles, how do you expect you'll get your vehicles around the garage? I mean, it looks to me, I mean, what's your access point at this point to get to the backyard?
It would actually more than likely be on the left side of the building as you're looking at that. We'd have a little bit more space, but I mean, a Bobcat can fit through there as it is now, and a narrow excavator could fit through there, but it would be tight, and we'd actually have to go around the left side. Basically, we'd have to tear apart the entire front yard to do that if we were going to go around the left side. So this would be our construction method would be to go basically start the retaining walls in the front, start the excavation for the garage, and then kind of work that back, just eat the ground away as we go back.
Let me ask you then about the trees that we see here on the right side of the property.
The tree is gone.
Okay, they're gone already.
And the other thing is that I don't know how the neighbor to the left would be impacted by this garage addition in any way at all. And I realize that, you know, having neighbor input is important, and she has voiced her opinion, and we appreciate it, of course. But I guess, you know, she did say that she didn't have any specific drawings, but she knew if she was concerned, she could have asked just as well. You know, there's placards up as well. So I mean, I
We usually put the burden on the people that want to ask for something from the county to go to their neighbors. That's part of the issue here. So I don't think that's an appropriate response. The issue that she's raised, I think, and it's even clear from the drawings, is that construction is going to happen close to her property line.
very much so, absolutely.
And I think in terms of any kind of a disruption to a neighborhood, anytime there is major construction, that's going to be disruptive. We understand that it happens, that's part of the building process, and some of that can occur if it's by right, and there's nothing that we could do with regard to the zoning. So that isn't the exact issue that we're looking at here, but it is one of the factors that we look at.
Yeah, and again, though, we would want to like basically work get the front yard retaining walls done to kind of minimize the amount of disruption to the property line. You know, get those retaining walls in place before we begin the excavation in the rear.
My colleagues have any other thoughts?
Madam Chair, your initial point with respect to suggesting the need for a deferral, I concur with, because I really think that this applicant has to talk to the neighbor about what the plans are and how they're going to be achieved. Because the neighbor is just hearing today, and she's, as the staff has pointed out, most directly affected in an adverse way. And I think that it really behooves the applicant to have a real good understanding with the neighbor, so that, because this is our chance to condition the project, and without kind of forcing some dialogue, there may not be, and that could have even greater adverse consequences than staff suggests. So I would suggest a deferral is in order.
If I can make a statement, sorry, quickly. We've actually discussed these plans before. What's the only difference? When this plan first came out last year, this plan was actually discussed with my neighbor. The difference, and the plan was to always dig into the driveway and to sort of make a left turn behind the house and create the addition there as well. The difference in this plan is the distance between my house and the neighbor's house. So while it brings a little bit closer to the scale of construction will still be the same. It'll just be a slight movement towards the property line. And the concern being that there would be an undermining of retaining walls. The concept would be that while the retaining walls would be built in the front where the tree once stood, that's why it was cut down to widen the driveway. The idea would be that that wall would be underpinned and there'd be a retaining wall there. So the intent would be to not interfere with her property line or any retaining walls in her property. So it's already been discussed, just a change in the scope as far as the movement towards her property line. But it would be the exact same construction whether this was approved or deferred. I don't know what the actual technical term is for it.
Well,
it wouldn't change much.
And I think, Mr. Smith, to the applicant's point, we've actually had the opportunity to hear from the person who is most directly affected by this, and I'm not sure what additional value we have from other neighbors, except it concerns me that we don't have any additional input from the neighbors. So
Chairman, I'm sorry, the neighbor on their side, during the initial permit request, signed off on it. Neighbor across the street did as well. And in fact, Nancy did as well the first time around. It's just...
I didn't sign off on anything. We had discussion.
Well, we had a discussion, pardon me.
we don't engage in any conversations.
Okay. You don't happen to have the record from the last... I mean, I guess maybe we were negligent, or we were negligent in not getting updated letters, I suppose, because we did have more letters the first time around on this. And again, the major difference between this application and that application is the by right portion being attached to the use permit addition. I mean, that is the major difference. I mean, there is a slight difference in the width of the addition above grade, but below grade it's the same width.
But the whole point is that slight addition above grade is exactly what it is that we have to act on.
Sure.
Because that addition above grade is what encroaches into the setbacks, which is the reason you have to come here in the first place. And when we actually have that happen when people don't do a wall check and they have a 1-inch variance on what's approved and what's not done. So your comment right there is sort of misunderstanding what the very purpose of the Board of Zoning Appeals work is.
The interest of the neighbors, I mean, they have been.
Well, and I'm just referring to the interest of the board as we're looking at the issue. The exact change and modification you're talking about is what is relevant to our jurisdiction, because of course, obviously, what you do on the by right portion is nothing that we would have jurisdiction over. So I think your terminology that there's been some negligence in terms of not understanding or not putting forward the best case you could at this time is prevalent. As you've heard at the very beginning, you would have to get a majority vote, which means you would have to get 3 members here tonight to vote for you to grant this permit. I think you've heard that at least 2, myself and 1 colleague, has some concern, and my guess is there are other concerns as well. And if we move forward on your request tonight, it's probably going to be denied. If we defer it for a month to give you time to get those additional letters of support, and maybe even have further discussions with the neighbor, because it does sound like those are issues that can be worked out. And if you have the right to do the major construction by right, you're doing it in the least encroaching way, that you can get, in fact, maybe a letter of support in the future that you don't have right now.
Okay.
That's what we're offering to you.
No, I totally understand.
We don't want to waste your money and time.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So in light of that explanation and hopefully understanding that, I think we're ready to take a motion. Ms. Freshman?
Yes, I agree with all of the comments previously made. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals defer V-10737-12-UP2 to the July 16, 2014 Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. We'll see you back next month. Yeah.
Okay, our next case tonight is V-10886-14-VA-1. It's a carryover variance request by VAMC Baku to permit a main building footprint of 2,972 square feet instead of 2,380 square feet as permitted. This is for a new 2-story rear addition attached to an existing non-conforming 1-story garage and a covered front porch with steps. This is in the R5 zoning district on a premises known as 643 21st Street South, and this is actually a request to withdraw the variance.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Russell?
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeal accept withdrawal of variance. I have the use permit, sorry.
It's V, Barry.
Yes, it's V. It's 1088614 VA1.
Yes.
Don't have the right.
It's been moved by Mr. Russell, seconded by Ms. Freshman. All in favor? Aye. So the first part of that is withdrawn. Then we have a companion request, or...
Okay, the next request is a carryover and also a revised request. This is the use permit V-10886-14-UP-1. This is a request by VAMC Baku to permit a setback of 5 feet to the eave and 5.3 feet to the wall of a new 1-story detached garage from the rear property line instead of 10 feet is required, and 18.3 feet to the eave, 18.6 feet to the wall of the garage from the South Grant Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet is required. So a setback of 1.9 feet to the egress window well, 4.1 feet to the eave, and 4.9 feet to the wall of the new 2-story addition and areaway from the right side property line instead of 8 feet is required. And a setback of 16.5 feet to the steps, 19.7 feet to the porch eave, 20.5 feet to the porch base, and 23.3 feet to the 2 bay windows from the 21st Street South right-of-way instead of 25 feet is required. And finally, a setback of 6.2 feet between the new detached garage and the main building instead of 8 feet is required. This is all for the construction of a new 2-story rear addition with a basement, new 1-story detached garage, a covered front porch with steps, a right side egress window well, right side basement way, and 2 front bay windows. This is in the R5 zoning district on the premises known as 643 21st Street South.
And the recommendation in this matter is to adopt the attached resolution denying the use permit for the 2-story rear addition, the egress window well, the areaway, and the detached garage, but approving the front porch with steps and the 2 front bay windows. The staff has provided an alternative resolution should the BZA wish to grant the use permit as advertised. Questions of staff?
I have one, please. Sorry. I just want to make sure I understand in my mind. The only difference in this application is the garage is torn down and a new garage is built in front of it. There's no change to the rest of the building whatsoever, as was
Correct.
proposed when we saw it.
That's correct.
I thought so. I just,
And the detachment of the garage is what created the situation where they no longer need the variance for main building footprint coverage. So they now receive a bonus for having a detached garage.
thank you.
Is that your question as well, Ms. Frischman? Okay. Any additional questions of staff? Okay. Seeing none, I don't know if Vamsi Banshu's here. Okay, and there's agent also Sean Nazimian. Is it Nazimian? Nazimian. Third time I got that wrong. Okay. Why don't we talk a little bit about, I think my colleagues have expressed the question that there's no change to the proposal. Is that correct, or where are we at from the last time we heard this?
We met with Mr. Knoxon several times and followed his instruction as of lot coverage, and rather than keeping the old floor plan and attaching the new addition to the existing garage, we have demolished the existing garage to be more conformant with the neighborhood, making it two-door garage rather than 3-door garage, and making it a detached garage per his recommendation in order to have the lot coverage and everything work in there. So I'm actually amazed that this was, their recommendation was different than what we talked about previously. My understanding was, we were following whatever Mr. Knoxon was recommending to do, and
I guess my larger question would be for you to address the concerns of the staff report, because I think to help us understand and decide whether we should agree with the staff and deny the request or grant your request as it was advertised, we would need to hear from you why you think we should grant the request to build this structure.
Sure, I wasn't involved in the discussions with Mr. Knoxon, but if you'd permit me to kind of share my recollections from when we were here February. Our motivations for having our extension in the interior versus towards the street, towards the center, or it's a busy street. There's lots of traffic relative to the rest of the neighborhood. We're also, from an aesthetic perspective, want to minimize our footprint on the corner, i.e. hide the extension as much as possible. And when we were here in February, my understanding, the concerns from the board were we were over the 2,500, whatever the square footage permit was. And it appeared, I guess, in my opinion, my wife's opinion, that was a major concern, and we attempted to rectify that in the months since. But again, our motivation for was to quote unquote hide the extension as far away from the street as possible. And we did get concurrence with our neighbors that whether they thought it was a good idea or a bad idea, including the neighbor directly, I guess it's the brick building right behind our house, and we also got signatures from all of our adjacent neighbors. And also, I also want to add, in my opinion, it's consistent with the neighborhood as a whole. The house directly behind us, it's a very similar layout. There's a new house built across from us, which is not in that satellite photo because it was just built within the last year, but it's also similarly long. It extends all the way back into towards the back fence. But again, in my opinion, that style is consistent with what we've seen built in the neighborhood thus far in the past year or two, including the house directly behind us.
So the extension will go on this side of the house, is that what you're saying? You'll tear down?
Side where the fence, away from the street. The goal was always to put it back away from the street as possible. And if you would see the house to the left on this photo, their extension and their garage is about a foot from the property line of their extension. I think it's about 7 or 8 feet or so. But it's sort of a mirror image.
And it's not shown in this picture, but on the right side of the 21st Street, the two houses, the second or third house, is a very similar layout, long layout built by Stanley Martin that doesn't show in these pictures, about less than a year old. That has a very similar look into the whole neighborhood. So that because of the size of the lot in those neighborhoods, most of them are built the same way, trying to take advantage of the length of the property.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal, at least my wife and I's goal when we originally drew it up on a paper on our dining table, was to avoid a monolithic cube per se, and to minimize the dimensions.
Okay, give us a couple minutes and we may have a couple questions. Or Ms. Freshman.
Well, I have always been uncomfortable with the sheer size of this addition, and honestly, I think tearing down the garage and replacing it with something that's not attached is a technicality in my view. And hiding it from the street only means you're hiding it from one street and showing it as huge as it can be on the other street. So, you're on a corner, so you can't hide it. And I'm just very concerned with the sheer size of the addition, of the rear addition, which I think the staff has also pointed out in the staff report. And I'm not real interested in the garage per se, but I do have a curious question, which is, if you're going to tear down the existing garage anyway, have you considered putting it underneath the addition so that the sheer number of structures and massing on that lot are somewhat reduced?
Well, one of the things that we have been talking to staff as we followed the recommendations since February was try to, and from the take that we had from the February hearing, was the size of the existing garage is massive and attached. So we followed those, and we've been working through that to make it smaller, through a lot of cost for him to make it smaller and detached, so we do not go through the variance and lot coverage and everything else. But also, putting the garage as an attached to the house would create another 400 or 500 square feet of loss of footage that has to be built somewhere else for him, which we're back to square one with that.
Ms. Freshman, I do recall that one of the concerns the last time was they wanted to keep that three-tier garage, and I do think that there's been some recognition of what was the concern and a large focus of the discussion the last time, which is not trying to attach the proposed addition to the three-car garage.
And I understand that. I'm just suggesting that there are any number of examples, including the case we just had, where garages go underneath additions, thereby reducing the number of actual structures on the property.
But the part of it is then they lose the bonus for having a detached garage. Isn't that correct,
With
Mr.
all due
Knox?
respect, that's not my
Well,
issue.
they would lose their basement space too, to a garage at that point, but,
I'm just pointing out that there are other ways to do it and other ways to look at it, and that if you're like me and concerned with the overall mass, that's another way to do it if you need to have a garage. But apart from that, I'm disappointed that the addition is unchanged, because my principal concern was the size of the addition and how it impacts the neighbor to immediately to the east and those on the street and to the west.
I didn't mention this today, but we spent quite a bit of time in the February hearing. The genesis of building this extension was to level my mother-in-law's in a wheelchair, was to level everything, to go from a ground floor garage to a ground floor bedroom to a ground floor family room. And I know that's not everything here, but we've always wanted the garage as close to our bedroom as possible.
I recall that. Mr. Smith?
Madam Chair, I want to ask staff about 640 20th Street. Your note says that apparently in 2005 they made a variance application and it was denied, but something apparently was granted, or I mean, it also shows below that there was a by right on the side. I imagine that's on the north side or on the east side. What was going on with 640? Part of it was denied. What was approved that they did get such a big structure?
It was denied, and then they came back and just got the addition by right instead. They were asking for 6 feet, and that's, that was only 490 square feet. It's nowhere near the size of this addition. I'm not sure the whole history of that, but yes, it was denied, and they came back with a by right option. And that was on a much more narrow lot as well. Same with the house that was referenced across the street from the subject property. That new home was built by right on a lot that was, I think, only 60 feet wide.
And so is there no way to build I mean, if we're worried about the mass, but they can build something as big as those two properties, why, what have you done to explore the by right options, I guess?
I think we could build something just as big as those houses, but it would be a cube-shaped house, probably 3 stories high, which all the other new houses are, which we're trying to avoid going vertical. And we'd like to have some semblance of that. We like that green space where on the street where, your daughter plays, your dog plays, but it's a nice interactive spot with the rest of our neighbors. But we could certainly have a large house in the middle of the yard, but we don't think it'd be functional from a yard perspective or aesthetically pleasing, or it's a lot of stairs. It'd be a 4-story house, which is what's pretty common in our neighborhood now.
Madam Chair, it seems like to me that a roughly 400 square foot rec room is part of the problem there.
Well, one of the things that is happening is...
and I know then it's also a 400 square foot master bedroom also. That seems like a large area.
But we are removing the existing back addition that is part of the house, which is somewhere about a 13 by 18 or 13 by 20. That is all getting removed, and then the addition is getting built up. So one of the things we got to consider is what they're losing from existing house.
Yeah, the part that's being removed is about, it's not very large. I mean, it's not...
if you see it in a picture, it's the back addition of the house.
15 feet deep, the part that's being removed, and it's not 23 feet wide, 23 and a half feet like that addition is.
In front of me, I can... 13 by 16, 2-story 13 by 16, plus the screen porch on the side, which is a 10 by 12.
I mean, you've got a master bedroom that's 20 feet by 23 feet, and the rec room below is 20, 30, almost, 25 roughly by 23. That's a large area, it seems, that pushes it back and creates...
What is called for the rec room and the plan is basically a combination of the living room and the dining room, because the current living room that they have is about 11 feet by 14 feet, but becoming basically in a new plan sort of a foyer type of effect. And the purpose of using that room that they call a general rec room, or these days everybody call it as a great room, is their living room, dining room use in the back. Because there is no, if you look at the plan, there is no dining room and there is no living room.
I guess the other issue that was raised by staff is the potential for conversion into multi-family use of the proposed structures, given the wet bars and the other water that's in the proposed addition. Can you speak to that?
They can put a clause in there that it wouldn't be that, and they're not, the purpose is not to use that as a multi-family use. It's just for Mr.
I mean,
Buck.
that's just for my relatives to use down there. We originally wanted a stove so they could cook, but Sean told us we couldn't put a stove down there, so at least just have a water line and a fridge.
You do have the signature of the neighbor next door, but not, and the neighbor whose property would be most directly affected, is that Mr. King? Is
641, I think, is the house number.
640 20th Street.
Okay, okay.
And the neighbor next door, 638.
I spoke to the gentleman who lives at 640. His issue was he wanted to connect the garage, and that was what was denied. At least that's what he told me back in 2005.
He does have signatures from all the neighbors adjacent to the property and across the street. Russell?
I have comments when we get ready for comments.
Okay, and no questions?
Questions?
Okay, why don't you have a seat, and I think we're going to take some comments.
My impression of this is that, usually when we have a corner lot, we're dealing with narrowness, the inability to add because of the shape of the lot, the shape of the corner, 25-foot setbacks on two streets, that sort of issue in lots that sometimes are conforming, say in the case of R6, 60 feet wide and 6,000 square feet. In this instance, we've got a corner lot that I have a lot of trouble trying to find a hardship for granting a use permit. It's 9,000 square feet, 6,000 is required. It's 75 feet wide instead of 60 as required. And what they're asking for is essentially is a right side variance for of what is it, 4.5 feet, and all they have to give is 8, and they can build it all by right. So, and they could build a new house by right. And, this is a third old house and 2/3 new house. So I have a lot of trouble seeing where the hardship is for a use permit on this. So I'm not inclined to support the approval. I would be supporting the staff's recommendation, which does include the bay windows, I believe, some other
front.
things. But essentially, they can shift the thing over 4 feet, and probably, don't go by me, you have to work with staff to make sure, but there's quite a large buildable area here to work in. And a garage, whether you have it or not, or you put it in the house or under it, it's all optional. It's not required.
Okay.
So that's where I am.
Additional comments? I think you weren't on. You want to say it again?
I agree.
Thank you, Ms. Freshman. Mr. Smith?
My comments earlier were in the same vein, though not as well put as Mr. Russell's.
I think I am in the position of agreeing with my colleagues in that the lot size does provide additional options, and although there was some minor attempt to address some of the concerns that were raised, I still have larger concerns with the proposal that's before us, and I think would be in the same position. So I think we are, you've heard the inclination of the board not to grant the permit. I don't know if you want an additional deferral to try and come up with something, but I think we're suggesting that there's by right options which wouldn't require the variance. If you think of, or the use permit, if you think a use permit would still be necessary for any of the construction that you want, the appropriate request would be to defer this so that you could not have to pay the additional fee again.
I think we prefer to defer it and then talk to the staff a little bit more, see what else we can come up with.
Because if you can come up with something where you still would need a minor use permit, it is better to have that option still open on the application that you've got before us.
Madam Chairman?
Mr. Russell.
May I suggest that if we go that way, that there are other things in granting a use permit that you will want to address if you come back with some, a smaller request for a side yard variance. I think I, for one, would be looking for some windows in that side of the house. It's blank. You can do those. You can do it that way as a matter of right if you don't ask us for a use permit. But it could be the types of, that could be some of the types of conditions that we would be wanting to put on a use permit approval.
Well, if the location of where it is approved, then adding the windows as a condition is
I think we're also saying that that we want you to look at the actual size and see if you can reduce it a little bit.
If we reduce the actual size, it would make this a much longer tunnel look. Right now it's a 23.5 by 60, and if I reduce it by 4 feet per se, it would make it a 20 by 60, which is more unsightlier.
You could also move it forward, I think is what we're saying. I know you want to preserve every bit of that green space, but you have room, because the lot is so large, to move the location of that house.
That creates a problem with the garage. That pushes the garage further into the front yard.
And the difficulty with that is, as we said the last time, I think, is that our position on the garage is that it is not essential, and there may be a trade-off there.
They could maybe ask for a closer gap between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So right now it's at, right now we're only counting 6.2. The eaves can encroach into that as of now. So it's possible they could cut that down a little too.
It would require a use permit, right?
It would, correct. Mm-hmm.
What I was speaking about was that if you get a use permit from us, we might approve that use permit with conditions like windows, moving this, moving that, doing these other things. It might be in your best interest to figure out what you can do as a matter of right. Then you can do it exactly the way you want it in terms of windows or any of that, many other things.
But the main issue, the reason that Mr. Baco has been asking to have this, because by placing this addition, they have no yard. They have literally no yard on the side, no yard in the back, and the only yard that they would have left is on a front corner.
Well, I think
I'll argue with you.
I think we're at a point where we'll either do a motion right now to defer this, or I think we're ready to make a motion to deny.
We were asking for a deferral so we can work through with the staff for this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know.
Madam Chair? I move to defer V-10886-14-UP1 to the
July 14th.
July only gives them about a week to get in a revised plat and plan, so
September.
they may need to go to August.
I think we'll need the time. You'll need the time.
Is that enough time for you?
For a week?
I mean, and the issue is, remember, if you take Mr. Russell's advice and decide that you cannot come up with a solution to do it with the use permit, you can always go by right, and you wouldn't have to wait till the August meeting.
Yeah, I understand that.
So,
July, is that what I'm saying?
You want to do it July, or you can do it in August?
yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to get a surveyor to get a survey to me within the next week with that, the new revision, I can take the plans at least up to another week and a half after that, so.
Yes, I don't have a problem getting that done.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you have a surveyor who can turn that around that quickly and, give you a design that works for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
So you're requesting July?
Yes.
Okay. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and by Mr. Smith and seconded by Mr. Russell to defer this to the July meeting. And obviously, if you don't meet that date, you can request an additional
Thank you.
extension.
Thank you. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Our next case, these next three are related, and we have seen these. This is our third time seeing these, actually. The first case is V-10888-14-UP-3. This is a use permit request by Len Capusta to permit a setback of 6 feet to the chimney, 6.2 feet to the eave, and 7.4 feet to the wall of a new third-story addition in the existing building from the left side property line instead of 12 feet as required, and 10.5 feet to the eave and 11.5 feet to the wall of the new third-story addition in the existing building from the 21st Road North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. This is to permit a structure that exceeds 2.5 stories within 25 feet of a right-of-way line. Also, this is for a new third-story addition on an existing non-conforming two-family dwelling. It's in the R5 zoning district on a premises known as 4133 21st Road North.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution denying the subject use permit, and an alternative resolution has been provided should the BZA wish to approve the use permit. Questions of staff?
Madam Chairman?
Mr. Russell.
For the record, the audio record that we had, could I ask staff to briefly tell us what's the difference between this and what we denied before?
Okay. The last proposal we saw in February was an entire third-story wall-to-wall. So it went straight up on both walls and was actually taller. It was actually right at about 34, 35 feet, so right at the max height limit. This new proposal is cut down a little bit. It's more like a loft type level. It has a large dormer on the right side. So it is a little lower, but it's still providing enough space for an entire third story worth of, bedrooms, closet space, bathrooms, that such thing.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions of staff? I believe Lynn Capusta is probably not here, so we have the agent again, Mr. Zaid Johar.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Just to go over the description of the project, we thought by having it as a loft addition, this would not exceed a third-story addition. Maintaining an eave all around actually should maintain this as a half-story, so we're not asking to permit a third-story addition, and that's why we redesigned the whole thing to have a gable on the front, which promotes compatibility with the rest of the houses in the neighborhood. And I have pictures here. But it's on airplane mode, so I'm just reading my notes off my phone. Comments that we had from the neighborhood last time was some people complained about the privacy, having a balcony on the side. We canceled that. Some people complained about blocking the sun. We reduced the height. Parking. A lot of people seem to complain about parking. Since that date, we actually got permits to extend the existing driveway. So we added 3 more parking spaces to the street without increasing the occupancy. So we actually saved 3 parking spots from the existing street, and I can pass these, made some copies. Each building already has 2 driveways. Last year, we extended one of them to the back so we can also absorb another car from the street. A month ago, we actually expanded one width-wise. You can see the car stop in one of them. It actually accommodates another car. So that should help the parking issue in the neighborhood. And we did this as of good faith for the neighborhood, taking their comments into consideration. Again, to the occupancy, I mean, these houses are 1 bedroom. By adding the loft, we're proposing another bedroom and a den. Basically, right now, it can only be occupied by a young couple who does not have kids. So adding another bedroom would help for, if there's any kids in the family, which is one of the case for the tenants right now. There was a bathroom proposed. We took that off, so we to prove that we're not actually adding another dwelling in there. Overall, this, I think, adds value to the houses. I mean, Lynn Capusta has been doing all these remodeling projects since, 2 years from now, and I think that tremendously increased the value of the houses and hence the neighborhood at large. So that's one benefit to the neighborhood. As the board comments last time, we were not allowed to go over 3 stories or 2.5 stories. There was a stipulation there, so we thought that we maintained that by having an eave all around. Compatibility, like I said, what's the reference here? Is it the houses on the same strip? I mean, that sunroom pretty much, canceled that, and there's really not a, there's no compatibility in this neighborhood. I mean, all these houses are randomly shaped. You can see the pictures that I handed out. I guess these are the comments that I had.
Mm-hmm.
We're open to suggestions, of course, so.
Yeah. Any questions?
Sorry to interrupt. About that side dormer that's on the side, that's only there to create head clearance for the staircase. And we try to make it as small as possible. And this is the smallest that we can get to maintain a head clearance. If that window creates an invasion of privacy, we don't mind canceling it out. And really, the idea came is because a couple of months ago, a tree fell down on the house, and they wanted to repair the roof. So I was like, you know what, maybe this is an idea that we can swing by the board and see what we can get. Yeah, and other comments from the neighborhood was that the trash, and we know that's a tight street, we could not fit a dumpster for the previous projects, but by expanding the driveway, we created more maneuver way to get a dumpster there, to have it on site, to have the trash basically dumped there on a daily basis. Work hours will be regular work hours, 8 to 5 weekdays.
Okay. Questions? Okay, if there are no questions of you right now, we do have several speakers.
Sure.
Let's start with Kathy Burdett, 2134 North Stafford Street. After Kathy will be Adam Kovach.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I live on 2134 North Stafford, which is the street that hits it perpendicularly, hits the 21st Road perpendicularly. I've lived there for 23 years. Never had any parking problems whatsoever where I live until Ms. Capusta started changing these residences. I routinely have my street filled up by people in her units that park on my street and then walk down to their units because they don't have parking. Okay, the argument that they have increased the driveways, they built a concrete platform beside the driveway. I measured it tonight, it's 12 feet long. No car that hits mid-size could park in that driveway because it's not big enough. I mean, it would come out in the street, the back of the car would come out in the street. I mean, I have a small SUV and I could not park my car there. So unless she's going to restrict the type of car that she's going to have her renters have, that driveway is useless, okay? I recommend, obviously, that you deny the request for several reasons. She has, since she started, removed almost all the trees behind her houses, between her houses and Old Dominion. The result has been that we now get 100% more traffic noise than we ever got. Secondly, she has, I don't know what you want to call it, but placed concrete pavers over every inch of her properties, which all they do is rebound the noise. Every single noise the tenants make, everything is completely exacerbated. I've had to go over, you know, it's not been warm that long. I've been over to that one house 4 times, asking them to go inside. I don't need to hear who's in love with who else and drinking beer and et cetera, et cetera. And they have gone in. But the point is, you know, this is a family neighborhood, and she's not renting to families. She's renting to single individuals, cramming people in units. While she tells you it's a bedroom and a den, it's not going to be a bedroom and a den. The den has a walk-in closet. Who has a walk-in closet in their den? Okay, I don't. So the total effect is that they're very ugly properties, first of all. They're not at all, they don't at all blend in with the, you know, with Cherrydale at all. There's more noise. She rents to multiple people. Multiple people have multiple people over, and on weekends it is indescribable what happens over there for parking. And it's not positive. Let's see. I think that's, you know, sums it up. The parking really is the biggest thing that I would point out. It has not been solved, and it continues to be a very serious problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kovac? I don't know.
Thank you and good evening. I don't want to repeat everything that Kathy just said. There are 5 of us here. I do want to point out that there are a number of other people in the neighborhood who simply can't attend tonight because they're either traveling or they have child care issues. Three neighbors in particular that I've spoken to who all are also opposed for the same reasons.
Can I, let me just put on the record your address. You're at 2146 North Stafford Street, is that correct?
That's correct, yes. So I'm at the top of the hill and I overlook 21st Street, and now Lynn Capusta owns, it was 4, now she bought a 5th, 5 properties on the street. As Kathy's outlined too, she does the same thing at her properties. She expands as much as she can. She paves over yards and deforests the neighborhood. We have noise, we have runoff, we have parking. She crams tenants in as much as she can. We have no trust in what she says about it. If she tells you that she's planning these as family units, well, I don't believe that. That's not what she's done so far. Essentially, her vision for the neighborhood is to create an apartment complex without the parking, and we moved into a neighborhood that was full of suburban family homes where kids could play along the streets and the like. So I really don't have additional complaints to add. I'd just like to strongly ask you to do what you can to help stop someone who really seems to me to be a compulsive builder and to have nothing good to offer our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Lita Miller. And while Ms. Miller's coming up to the podium, her address is 4127 21st Road North. So you're on the same street.
Good evening. If you can see the same picture that I can, I'm the brown house that's just to the right.
Okay.
With the window. That's my kid's room. Along with my neighbors, I also asked that the board deny this application. Just as we did in February. The proposed changes are only moderately different than the application from February. The additional height and density does not support cohesiveness within our development, within our neighborhood. And I had submitted a letter earlier today to Mr. Noxon, and I think you guys have all seen it. And in that, I had used Google Earth, because, wow, that's awesome. They now have dated. You can go back and look at what your house looked like from 2007 and 9 and 12. And what I did was I pulled some pictures of then and now to show you what has transpired in the neighborhood since Ms. Kapuska, as Adam says, is compulsively now constructing. On her drawing, she shows this front view, and it's very nice looking with a pretty roof. But what she doesn't show in that is the height of the two neighboring houses. Because on one side, the units, which is still hers, which is higher, and then my side, which is lower. And it's a very, very steep hill that goes down. And one of my neighbors mentioned runoff, and we're actually now working with waterproofing companies, because since that cutout that she has changed with her mini driveways, we now have a flooding basement. So the water, I guess, I don't know, 2 weeks ago we got flooding in Arlington, and that water all went straight into my basement. We've never had water. We've been there for 15 years. What else? Oh, and also, I think I sent over the fire station number 3 drawings that I obtained during that construction process that shows that there's only 15 legal parking spots on 21st Road. And those are for the overflow from those townhouses and all the houses on the opposite side of the street that don't have any driveways at all. So that's 15 spots for not enough people who are there. And again, in my letter, I gave a cute little picture of our neighbor, Brady, with his little electric car. And that's about the size of those spaces that the contractor had commented have been added. Those are not a full-size piece. And I had a question, and I don't know if I'm allowed to ask questions, but on the alternative resolution, there's a definition of family. It says for 2 families. What is the definition of a family? Like, am I allowed to ask questions?
Well, we appreciate the question. We can ask that of staff in a moment.
Okay. And then the trees. I had mistakenly missed some drawings, a picture that was submitted with the letter I'd submitted that shows the canopy. May I approach?
I think there's...
Okay.
Here's the before and after. So the top picture that's all green is the back of her units in my house. You can't even find the house. And the second picture was taken today, and that is the back of her unit. And again, you can see a little bit of my shed, but for the most part, behind my house is completely green, but behind hers is completely open. And that speaks to what Ms. Burdett had said about the noise, and it is pretty intense. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anthony Passo? 4141 North 21st Road.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. I am perhaps one of the most affected individuals, property owners, by these changes. I am right smack in the middle. I own one of these duplexes myself. I purchased this in 2004 and have been living in it most of the time, except for a brief period where I moved out due to some family circumstances. A number of things. I think that Ms. Kapusta, in my opinion, has consistently worked, and not in harmony with the area's best interest. In addition to what my associates or my colleagues, my neighbors said, she's defoliated the area. She's added non-secure hot tubs in the back, which is family neighborhood, so there's lots of children running around, and I always thought that when you had a pool or something like that, you had to put a fence around it. So these are the type of actions that she's had done consistently over the past 5 or 6 years. And if you put an addition onto this, or an addition on the top, another floor, whether it's a loft or not, it still adds 6 more people to the neighborhood. As you can see by the drawings, it's 2 bedrooms. It's going to make this essentially into the top floor into a 3-bedroom, 1-bath unit. If that's not for 3 single people, I can't see what that would be per se. And then the lower unit now has enough room for a minimum of 6 people, or 3 people down below. So 3 plus 3 is 6 people per unit, all unique individuals, unrelated for the most part. While we can't, I suppose, by law regulate who she can rent to, I will say that it's pretty much designed for a single professional person that that would go and, want to live there, and it's very transient. And so I would reiterate what everybody else said, and those are a couple of things of my own. Thank you.
Great. And I think our last speaker, at least the last one I have, is Veronica Wilson. And I believe Ms. Wilson, Terrence S. Wilson is also related to you?
He's my husband.
Okay, and we received a letter from him as well.
I'm at 4140 21st Road North. I live across the street and next door to Ms. Kapusta's residences. I don't want to repeat everything you've heard. It's not been a great environment to live in. This is my first home. I've been living there about 18 months, and to refute the contractor's statement that this is improving the neighborhood, let me give you a tiny bit of background. I first looked at this house in the summer of 2011. I turned around the corner, and I said, absolutely not. It was a mess. Not the house I bought, the one next door to it that was condemned at that point. That was one of Ms. Kapusta's properties on the corner. We just did not pursue it further. The following year, it didn't sell at all. It sat on the market for months. The following year, when the rental lease was up, we went back again. I said, still can't do it. It's absolutely a mess. The block is a mess. A couple of months went by. Her realtor knew we were interested. They kind of cut the price down. I said, you know what, let's do it. It has been 18 months of garbage, construction. No houses on that block sell. They have sat vacant for months, and the only one who's buying them is Ms. Kapusta. I can't even sell my house because the only buyer is going to be Ms. Kapusta. The realtor, when we bought our house, said, I can't even give you any comps. Nothing sells on that block, and what does sell is way below market value. So I'm stuck. It's either live it or sell it to Ms. Kapusta. That's what I feel like my options are right now. But besides that, my husband has become quite obsessed with taking pictures all the time. I have a series of pictures over the period of weeks and months of the garbage that covers our street, the front of the house. She fills up the garbage pails, and it sits all week long. As soon as the garbage pickup comes, she drives her car up, fills it up with garbage from her car, from inside the house. She piles all the pails from all of her properties, fills them up to capacity, and then spreads the garbage all over the block in front of the vacant houses. In addition to snow, she doesn't shovel. Because she owns so many properties, you can't walk down the block. I'm forced to walk in the street with my young children and fall in the street, which I have done. Ms. Kapusta, though, was nice enough to come over and help me up. I couldn't get to my car because she hadn't shoveled the sidewalk in front of her home. She does rent. There are a couple of houses that have renters on the block. I've become friendly with them. They're very nice. Unfortunately, most of Ms. Kapusta's renters, the nicer ones, move out quickly. She drives them away. The ones that do stay are not friendly to the neighbors. They don't shovel. I looked at a bag of garbage out my living room window for the entire winter from the 4 guys who live next door. Their garbage repeatedly blows over into my yard. So I realize this isn't necessarily about the construction, which has just been a nightmare for 18 months. It's the quality of life that Ms. Kapusta creates. And it's been going on since at least 2011, because that's how long I was looking at that block to wait to buy that property. I have pictures. Like I said, my husband has become quite obsessed. Snow, streets being backed up, what those houses actually look like every day, what the parking on the block looks like on a regular day. There's 2 empty spots, and there's 3 vacant houses on the block. There's only 2 empty spots here. I could go on, but I think I'm limited to 2 minutes, so thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. If you want to start with Mr. Russell, we'll pass them down.
Thank you.
You want to come back up and respond?
All right. None of those seem to be construction comments, but anyways, we'll start with the parking again with the first neighbor. A while before we started doing the construction here, these properties were vacant. That's why there are now people on the street. It's not because she started doing the work here, because these properties were neglected for the past 10 years. There's nothing going on. So Now we have tenants, so of course there are people parking on the street. Claims that this driveway does not fit a car, does not fit an SUV, definitely. Get a decent, small size car. This driveway actually, the extension, if you measure from the seam line that divides both parking spots, each of those measures 9 foot wide. One of them is long enough to fit 2 small cars. The other one that we created is actually 14, 15 foot long. So you can park a small size car without intruding into the street. Trees removal. Ms. Capusta had a tree fell on her street with kids living in the bedroom that could have potentially jeopardized their lives. So she simply just cut off the trees that are on her properties that are leaning towards the property. Had nothing to do with the public trees that are leaning towards Lee Highway, which could be a problem for the public in the future, God forbids. Okay, Tony's probably the only guy who knows, which is the guy who's in the middle between. These properties have 2 small bedrooms. The existing 2 bedrooms are converted to 1 large bedroom, and that's why we're adding the second one. So we're converting from 2 small bedrooms into 2 large bedrooms. I understand the concerns about the den having a closet. We'll be more than happy to remove it if that proves that this is not going to be used as a 3rd bedroom. So ultimately, the house is going to stay 2 bedrooms, as it is right now. Actually, right now it's 1 bedroom, but I mean, as it was before. But instead of being 2 small bedrooms, they're becoming 2 large bedrooms. We're not adding a bathroom upstairs, so we're not promoting another living, situation. Runoff water, I mean, all of these pavers are impervious surfaces, so they're not counted into lot coverage. That driveway extension, there's no way that creates any runoff water. That was actually extended to our property towards the front door. So, I mean, I don't see how this could have increased the runoff into the neighbor's house down the street. The hot tubs, I don't know if that's even an issue, but these are not even being used. The trash and the mess from the last neighbor who complained, I understand her frustration because that was before we took over the project. Construction was done as the owner being the contractor, and this is where the house was, a stop order was placed on the house, and this is where we took over and tried to fix the problem, where they excavated a lot of dirt to underpin the basement. So it was in the middle of the construction where we took over and tried to wrap it up as close as possible. Of course, underpinning project in November around Thanksgiving is not an easy job to do, especially with the weather, temperatures. You can't get concrete whenever, holidays. So it took a while, but we got it all wrapped up. I do not control the tenants, okay? I can, there's a family living there. Somebody mentioned that little kid Brady. That's actually, he's part of a family. There are 2 kids and a single mother living in one of the houses, and they're one of actually the tenants that were very excited about having this addition to the house, so that she can have extra room for her kids. Shoveling snow, I don't know if that's the owner's responsibility or the tenants. I apologize if tenants are not being cooperative. I mean, we're more than happy to take these comments into consideration. If anybody reaches out to us and tells us about the situation, well, of course, we'll address it. I mean, I was there on a random day where a FedEx truck just blocked. I mean, on a snow day, I was just stuck in the middle of the street and was gonna swerve into one of the neighbors' cars, and I spent 2 hours of my time just helping that truck just to get out of the way. So we are more than happy to take these comments into consideration. And the other thing that I wanted about the trash and the cans being full with trash, because we could not fit a dumpster on site. With that driveway extension, we created that maneuver room that we can have a dumpster on site to have the trash filled, dumped into the dumpster on a daily basis. So,
okay.
Anyway, this is the only response that I have. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Noxon, can I ask, do we have lot coverage issues with all of this cement and everything else that's on these properties?
From what we can see on the survey, we don't. The additional driveway would add some, but they're allotted 56% coverage because this is a 2-family. So we'd have to recalculate it with the newer survey, but I'm pretty sure they won't even be close to it.
Okay, because it doesn't seem like there's any green space left in the front of these properties at all.
And all these patio pavers and everything in the back, they don't count against lot coverage, so. Yeah.
Probably conditions we should have thought about when they were asking for the last additions. Any thoughts or comments? There is none. I would accept a motion. Oh, you're not on.
Sorry. I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution denying use permit V-10888-14-UP3.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Nay.
Oh,
nay.
sorry, I didn't hear. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so the motion carries 3-1.
I'll just read off the next two. The next one is V-10889-14-UP-3. Use permit request by Lynn Capusta to permit a setback of 5.7 feet to the eave, 6 feet to the chimney, 6.9 feet to the wall of the new third-story addition and the existing building from the left side property line instead of 12 feet as required. Also 10.2 feet to the eave and 11.2 feet to the wall of the new third-story addition and the existing building from the 21st Road North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. And also to permit a structure that exceeds 2.5 stories within 25 feet of a right-of-way line. This is for a new third-story addition on an existing non-conforming two-family dwelling. This is in the R5 zoning district on a premises known as 4137 21st Road North.
And the recommendation on this property is to adopt the attached resolution denying the subject use permit. Again, an alternative resolution has been provided should the BZA wish to approve the use permit. For the record, all of the same witnesses who testified in the first matter have indicated that their comments would apply to this application as well. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Again, I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution denying use permit V-10889-14-UP3.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries 3-1.
Okay. And the third and final one of these related cases is V-10890-14-UP-3. This is also a use permit request by Land Capusta to permit a setback of 6 feet to the chimney, 6.4 feet to the eave, and 7.6 feet to the wall of the new third-story addition and the existing building from the left side property line instead of 12 feet as required, and also 10.4 feet to the eave and 11.5 feet to the wall of a new third-story addition and the existing building from the 21st Road North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required, and also to permit a structure that exceeds 2.5 stories within 25 feet of a right-of-way line. This is also for a new third-story addition on an existing non-conforming two-family dwelling in the R5 zoning district, premises known as 4145 21st Road North.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution denying the subject use permit. Again, an alternative resolution has been provided should the BZA wish to approve the use permit. And again, the comments of the previous testimony are being referenced as applicable to this application as well. Mr.
Excuse me, I hate to delay everybody more than they should. Well, we've heard from everybody in here, but until now I don't have the reason why this is being denied. I just wanted to hear from you guys.
I think that our determination is this would not be compatible. We're adopting the rationale that's in the report. That would be our basis. Those who are voting in favor of the recommendation, it's because of what's in the report.
Okay, as far as compatibility and neighborhood comments, is that what it is?
Yes. It's what's in the report. So it's not, at least from my perspective, it's not simply the comments of the neighbors with regard to the issues that are irrelevant to the granting of the use permit. It is the recommendations of the staff in light of the request that's being made.
But the recommendation of the staff is for permitting a third-story addition. Is that considered a third-story addition, or is that a half-story addition? Because having an eave all around maintains a half-story addition.
It's not the eave all the way around.
Okay.
Now, we don't have a section drawing from you showing that it meets the criteria for a half story. Now, if you were to show us a section drawing showing it's a half story, either way, it wouldn't make a difference to us. We would still recommend denial for a half story, whether it's a full story or half story. You're still getting the same amount of space out of that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
I think it's item number 4, the building will exceed the height permitted within 25 feet of a street. So with regard to each of the applications, that's one of the factors that is determinative for myself. So what's in the recommendation. So I don't think whether it's half story or the full story is going to make a difference.
And a big part of it, this is a non-conforming use in general. Not only are they not compliant with the use, they don't meet the lot size, they don't meet a lot of the criteria that they would need to get a use permit from the county board to even have this use in the first place.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution denying use permit V-10890-14-UP3.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Russell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
It carries 3-1.
2, 3, 1, yeah.
Our last two cases are actually deferrals tonight. This is a returning case V-10898-14-V8-2, and they're requesting to be deferred to August 13th. This is a variance request by Michael Sorrento to permit a main building footprint coverage of 37.8% instead of 33% as permitted, and a total lot coverage of 58.4% instead of 43% as permitted. This is to maintain 2 existing decks, a raised patio, and a gravel driveway in their current locations. It's in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 2105 South Fillmore Street.
The recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution to defer the subject variance to the August 13th Board of Zoning Appeals hearing.
I so move.
Ms. Freshman moves that we should defer.
Second.
Mr. Smith seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
Just to put this on the record, the reason for the deferral is the applicants have actually had a soils engineer come out to that property. This is the one that was on that slope, and the neighbors had all the water runoff issues. There is a piece of property between those neighbors and subject property that's owned by the HOA from the townhomes you can see in the photo. Mm-hmm. They have a drainage ditch there that has been completely clogged. So I think they have a bigger issue than just Mr. Sorrento's property, and they're trying to hash that out. The Department of Environmental Services has actually gone out and inspected that, and so they may have a case as well on the HOA property as well as Mr. Sorrento's. So I think there's still some work to be done on that. I'll call the last case then. So V-10898-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Michael Sorrento to permit a setback of 6.9 feet to a masonry barbecue from the left side property line instead of 8 feet as required, and a setback of 1.5 feet to a first floor deck, 2.6 feet to a masonry barbecue and raised patio, 14.7 feet to a second floor deck, and 22.1 feet to an outdoor kitchen from the rear property line instead of 25 feet as required. It's to maintain 2 existing decks, a raised patio, an outdoor barbecue, and an outdoor kitchen, all in their current locations. This is in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 2105 South Fillmore Street.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution to defer the subject use permit to the August 13th Board of Zoning Appeals hearing.
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Smith. All in favor? Aye. Hearing all 4 in concurrence, the motion carries unanimously 4-0. The next item of business, let me just see if we can do this. Yes, is Ms. Freshman, if you can.
Should have 2 sets of minutes this time.
Well, I guess I can call them, I just can't vote. So the first set of minutes is from the, well, we can do, I guess, the first set of minutes. April comes first, and the four of the five of us were present. Okay. So we have the April 9th, 2014 Board of Zoning Appeals minutes. Are there any additions or corrections that are necessary to those minutes? I didn't see anything.
I move approval of the minutes of April 9th, 2014.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. We then turn to the May 2014 meeting minutes.
I'll move approval.
Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstaining, well, I won't vote no. I'm going to vote abstaining, 1, Cecilia. So the motion carries 3-0-1. Can I sign those if I wasn't there? I don't think I signed them. I think,
No, I don't.
Mr. Smith, you were the senior person at the meeting since Ms. Craven wasn't also there.
Of May. Terry chaired the meeting.
Terry was chair that night.
We elected Terry.
I guess we have to give him the credit.
Fortunately, the third person who got here. Getting here at 6:15.
Now.
Hey, I tried. I left at 6:15. It took me 45 minutes.
2-1 vote. There you go.
Oh, I have to sign them?
Yeah. Yep.
Are you sure?
You were the chair. I can't sign it if I wasn't
Does my
there.
name have to be, or I'll just scratch it
cross
through?
that
Okay, y'all are so informal.
It's been moved to adjourn.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Freshman. Seconded by Mr. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned.
I just kept thinking affordable housing, and it's going straight up. I hear you. I know, and let the board deal with that. I just kept thinking, in my neighborhood, those duplexes over there, and they are always.
But it has gotten to a point where she's the only one that can buy that property.
Yeah.
And the problem I have is with everything being covered, in other regular neighborhoods, you can't do that.